claim your power. It's usually claim your power hour, but today it's claim your power half hour.
Yeah.
We're going to be on for a half hour because David has to run, but that's okay. From what I understand, all of you people out in social media land have a much shorter attention span these days, as do I.
Yeah.
So most people don't want a whole hour. So
Right.
this will be perfect.
Well, we could
So
have 30 claim your power minutes.
claim your power half hour. So we're on today with David Rude. If you've been watching our stuff for a while, you know who David is, but in case you don't, David's a graduate of our Taya bootcamp program, and you've been out a year.
Mm-hmm. About a year. I think it was about late June, early July of 2022 that I finished all the modules. So yeah, it's
And has
cool.
been geeking out on Taya since then, which I love to do. So you're a great guest, all of us that like to geek out on Taya. So if you're watching us live, or even if you're watching the recording, it doesn't matter. You came on a really good night, though, because we're going to dive into some transgressors, some latent transgressors, live on the air, and we're going to walk through the detuning process, which is what Taya is all about. So why don't you just talk about your experience coming out of boot camp and kind of bring us quickly up to speed to what's going on now?
Yeah. So boot camp was awesome, by the way. I mean, that was a really, it was hard. And I know we call it the experience now. Back then we called it boot camp. So I
We
still
still call it boot camp. We quit that.
okay.
We're back to boot camp.
Okay, cool. I mean, it was hard. I'm not gonna sugarcoat. I had I had moments where I nearly quit, but I also knew that if I didn't do this, I don't know. We have to kind of confront ourselves at some point in life, and so I was very adamant about taking ownership of every aspect of me, and it was worth it. And my life, I would say, pretty confidently changed enormously for the better. I had a lot of work opportunities that came to me very rapidly afterwards. My relationships came a lot better. I already had a good relationship with my wife before. It's even better now. Yeah, so on every aspect, and the financial side is a lot better too. So yeah, and everything is hugely better. And I haven't actually been triggered. I've been upset by things at times, and I've still had a lot of transgressors to go through and work through. But in very recent weeks, I have faced what I consider to be kind of like, I think of it like Taya boss level, because I had actually kind of re-entered into an old transgressor that I had not been involved with since pre Taya actually. And it was a work an employer that I had I've been basically been triggered in a way repeatedly in this condition in a way that I haven't, on a level that I haven't been triggered since before I even joined boot camp. So what I'm starting to realize through going through this is, one, I've actually had, this is maybe the wrong way to say it, but I've had to really fight for my Taya. So like I realized like, okay, this is kind of taking me back to an old version of me that's, I don't know this guy anymore. I'm not gonna, but I have to like really work at it. I think when things are a bit smoother sailing, you can sort of like coast a little bit. But now it's like, okay, I really have to like work at appreciation and meditation and like changing my perspective. The thing that I'm starting to realize, and this is what's very shocking to me, is that coming back into an environment. Okay, if I back up a few months ago or a couple of years ago, before before I even knew about Taya, I was kind of repeatedly finding myself in employment situations that were, I think you could say, inequitable, not necessarily exploitative, but definitely unfair working situations that at the time were very frustrating, but it was a recurring energy of sort of being a bit neglected or overlooked or sort of a bit disenfranchised by your employer. Since I did boot camp, that's kind of largely gone away, and the new employers and working conditions I'm involved with are totally different. I feel much more, I think it's a different me that sort of attracted these situations. But this is the first time I've gone back to one of those old employers thinking, well, I'm post Taya Dave, post boot camp Dave, I can manage this. I'm going to have a different experience. And then finding that you're back in that sort of like polluted water.
The old triggers came back. Are they the same triggers that you had before, or are they new triggers that you've
No,
uncovered?
they're the same as before because I thought the situation would be different, but it's not. And so but the thing is like it's striking to me how excruciatingly uncomfortable it is to be in the space.
So
Is
what,
this
I love
crazy
this.
or what?
I love this. I love this because we are getting into a very, I don't want to say common, but this is something that I see with boot camp and post boot camp, because you go through Taya boot camp, you learn all these things, you change your vibration, your life starts to really transform. Everybody that graduates is, flying high, shouting from the rooftops. That's why we have all these, great testimonial videos, because the things really show up. The money shows up, and the relationships improve, and the health gets better, and all this stuff starts to get better, and you feel like, wow, I really am glad that I did this. And then time passes, and I don't. And somebody, it's funny, I have somebody graduating right now, and she's like, "What's next?"
Yeah.
And it's funny because part of me is thinking now, okay, well, maybe because I have had things, I've had mastery and expanded and all these programs, but the intention behind boot camp was to learn the practice and really make my academy obsolete, which is not a great business model, but it was a very sincere thing, I think, on my part to, hey, I'm going to teach you this. You're going to put a lot of money into this. You're going to put time into it and a lot of effort, and it's going to challenge the hell out of you. But when you get out, you're going to know the practice, and you're going to go do this for the rest of your life. And there's lots of people that are doing that, but inevitably, when they get out, there, even people that got into mastery or expanded or any of those things, time goes by, the vibe shifts, some old things come back, you get a little lax in your practice, as I do, and everybody does, and then some of the old vibrational stuff comes back. I call that vibrational dust.
Right.
Meaning you cleared the basement out, you cleared out that old, the old transgressors that were causing, the triggers and all this stuff, but you detune, you don't eradicate.
Right.
I don't believe in the concept of eradication. Means that we're going to act like it never happened, it never existed. We're not doing that. We're detuning it, which means it can come back. That's why I like the word detune so much.
Right.
So and correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm just paraphrasing to catch us up. You up leveled your career big time.
Yeah.
Post boot camp.
Right.
You got into a much more prestigious scenario, and now in your off time you went back to an old scenario that was a lower vibrational experience for you, and you said, this is what you said, I thought it would be different.
Right.
Did you think the scenario would be different, or that you would experience it differently with your new tools?
I thought I would experience it differently with my new tools. I thought,
So you didn't dive into appreciation
okay.
of, well, right?
I don't know if I think I just thought I'd go along and see a bit. I'm not sure. I didn't quite go. I'm not sure. This is a good question.
Yeah. So the four pillars of Taya,
Yeah.
the fourth pillar of Taya is
Yeah.
intention.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point.
So the intention, so the appreciation is pillar one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And polarity is pillar two. Appreciation meaning appreciation of everything. That's the practice.
Yeah.
Polarity is pillar two, understanding that you're not always going to be able to appreciate the same depending on where you are vibrationally. Source is pillar three. I think we all know what source is. It's acknowledging that we're eternal beings and that we create our reality. And four is intention. Well, the intention part of it is pre-paving what you want to experience.
Right.
Creating the because if you don't, you really are sort of riding the wave of reality, appreciating every bump on the road, including the stuff that you used to consider bad.
Right.
So you could go into that scenario without a solid intention.
Right.
And see what happens. And it kind of sounds like maybe you did that.
Yeah.
And the way to navigate that is, okay, I used to think it sucked when I was treated badly or underpaid or exploited, like you said.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to just appreciate the experience without judgment.
Right.
That would be a way to do that in the Taya practice.
Yeah.
But it triggered you, so you were judging it.
Yes, definitely.
And
You're
again,
right.
there's no wrong, there's no rules.
Yeah,
So it's okay that you had the experience of doing that,
yeah,
but you judged it. Therefore, you were triggered and it felt bad.
right.
And then it sounds like you're having a spin out experience where you're continuing to judge it instead of catching yourself saying, wow, this experience sucks
Yeah,
because I'm judging it as such.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Pretty much. I mean, I think I'm surprised that it came back. So that I'm surprised that I was surprised by the whole. It surprised me that I reacted in this way. So
But
I
you
mean,
walk back into the old scenario, so you sort of walk back into the old vibration.
right. I guess I had this idea that I could sort of be in that environment and not participate in that vibration. And you're right. I was not super deliberate with my intention. I think you're right on that. You hit that on the head. Um, Something that it started to occur to me that the one thing I do really like about this is I can see very clearly on a, I guess, a vibrational level, my benchmark of achievements. It's kind of like when you're a kid and you stand up against the wall and they draw the line, and then 6 months later you're like, oh, look how tall you got. It's a bit like that. I can look back and say, gee, like a few years ago, I would have been upset by this, but I would have tolerated it. Whereas now it's very uncomfortable for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like if you eat salads every day for like weeks and weeks and weeks, and then you go have junk food, you feel like garbage. But if you eat junk food every day, it's normal. You
Yeah,
see?
you're accustomed to being in a higher vibration now. I always say it's like you fly first class. You fly coach forever, and it's no big
Yeah,
deal. And then
yeah,
you start flying first class regularly,
yeah,
and then all of a sudden you're bumped back to coach,
yeah,
and it sucks much more
yeah,
than it ever did before. Well, you went back to coach,
yeah. Pretty
but
much.
you're judging the coach experience, which is
Right,
okay
right, right,
because the gift in this is that you are now going to figure out what's still in that vibrational basement.
right.
So, do you want to be specific on one or two things that are triggering you without calling anybody out
Yeah,
necessarily?
yeah. Without giving names, I mean, I have done a lot of work on this in the last couple of weeks, and I can see there's a trigger for fairness and for being able to sort of appropriately advocate for yourself, and it comes back to a root transgressor from boot camp. And so yeah, but it's this trigger of fairness that is very present for me all the time. And this is actually, if there's, yeah, I'm actually not sure how to tune that, if I can be honest. I sort of am able to see fairness as something that is more participatory, if that makes sense. Because if you're being treated unfairly, then you're the one participating in that treatment. And so I get that on a cognitive level, but there's still a knee-jerk reaction in there
Yeah,
that
you still have in your vibrational basement, you still have a need for fairness that you haven't detuned.
how do you detune that then? And by the way, if
So,
anybody in the chat like
I'm going
has
to
any
use
thoughts,
my example that, and those of you that listen all the time, I'm so sorry because you've heard this example a million times, but it's a good comparison to your fairness. Was the January 6th thing that
right?
happened here in the United States? I just talked
Yeah,
about this the other day. How I got triggered by that when it happened, and usually political stuff doesn't trigger me, but yet I got triggered by that. And I realized that I was already in a lower vibrational state that day. I was frustrated by something in the business, sitting at my computer, and had my phone in my hand, and the insurrection or the riot or the taking back our country, however you look at it, was happening,
yeah,
depending on which side you're on.
yeah.
And I was flipping between CNN and Fox News, like, oh, what's the two perspectives here? What's going on? And I really got triggered by, like, how dare they? How dare they overtake the Capitol? And how dare they? This is crazy that this is happening in the United States. Where am I? And I went right down my spiral, totally triggered. And I caught myself. I'm like, wait, usually before I get this triggered, I've already done my stopgap of, is this worth going down my spiral over? And then I stopped, and somebody might say, well, yeah, your government might be overthrown in this moment. Maybe it is worth going down your spiral. But I didn't go down that. I'm like, no, I'm not going to go down that path.
Right.
I'm going to put the damn phone down. I'm going to go and meditate, and I'm going to find the source perspective in this. In real time, I did this. So I did exactly that. I meditated. I did breath work. I'm source. I'm appreciation of all things. I'm a source being. I appreciate everything. How do I appreciate this? instantaneously, the people that are raiding the Capitol are in their belief system doing exactly the right thing. They are heroes. They are patriots. They are doing what they believe is right.
Right.
All my friends on Facebook that are melting down about it, or most of my friends, I have friends on both sides, but
Yeah, yeah,
most of
yeah.
the people that I know are melting down about it on Facebook. They are in their belief system that this is a horrible thing and it's awful and terrible and shouldn't be happening. And everyone's operating in their bubble of reality. So if I'm viewing it as source, I can't judge that. Now, yours is a little different because in your fairness, it's happening to you.
Right.
This wasn't really happening. I didn't take it as something that's happening to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I believe that no matter which side is doing what, I'm going to be okay. And that is my core belief. But I
Right.
realized that the trigger wasn't in politics. The trigger was in justice.
Right.
That
Yeah.
was unjust what they were doing, and that I had something lurking in my vibrational basement with all of the work that I do
Yeah.
of justice. I'm like, why is that still there? Well, I
Right.
haven't really thought about it. I haven't really had, a crime committed against me in a while.
Right.
When I had my identity theft in 2019, I didn't even care. I don't even care who did it. It didn't even cross my mind who did this. I need justice. I need to be. I was not even there. So why, this thing that isn't even personal to me, why am I needing justice about this? This is crazy. So I
Yeah.
just detuned it. And I have not thought about justice since that moment. So for you, it's exploring why, if you are the creator of your reality and you believe that so much that you
Yeah.
spent thousands of dollars in weeks and weeks and weeks,
Mhm.
learning this practice, why do you still have vibrational dust around fairness?
Hmm.
You create your own fairness because whenever something unfair is happening to you, you know that it's happening for you.
Right.
And I have
Yeah.
a couple of stories, in my employment years where I had things happen to me, quote unquote,
Yeah.
that were very unfair. But I had enough of this Taya source stream awareness at that time where I didn't react so harshly to it. I've had a couple of bosses that really treated me very badly. I had one that tried to frame me for theft
Oh wow.
because she wanted to make sure that she wasn't the one that was found guilty for it, and two, she told me that my eyes reminded me of her brother and she hated her brother.
Oh
This was a
wow.
boss, and I walked in on her trying to frame me for stealing money from the company. I never stole anything in my life,
Oh wow.
and in that I got that solved. I
Right.
got that solved, but I didn't go down the, oh my God, you're so terrible and something bad has to happen to you. I didn't care. I just left. I resigned and moved on and did something else. And she ended up getting found out and fired from the job and very publicly humiliated, for all of the things that she was
Huh.
doing. So karma, if you will, took care of that. And
Right.
I didn't sit around saying it's so unfair. Actually, what I did is I left one company that ended up going bankrupt and going out of business and went to work for a different company because of that. And I ended up being a top executive and making tons of money in
Right.
this new job. And I might not have been as motivated to do that had she not done that to me.
Right.
So is that making sense? That yes, it was unfair, but it was really the universe moving on my behalf to move me to something bigger and better that was more in alignment with my belief system, that
Yeah.
I should be successful and I should be working for the best company, not the one that's, close to going out of business. I didn't even know that at that time. The company
Right.
did end up going out of business a few years later. And, that I look back now, then and now and realize, gosh, that was the best thing that it could have ever happened to me,
Yeah.
was that I was, almost framed for something, but I, ended up better off as a result of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes perfect sense. I think maybe just for me, like walking that path is maybe takes a bit longer. It's like I have to because when I'm in a high state, when I'm up the spiral, I can look at this situation and say, hey, what? If I'm not valued here, that's not a reflection on me. That's fine. I don't need to be included. You don't have to include me.
Well,
You know?
you're not some egotistical person, but we all have an ego, and you probably
Yeah.
have enough ego where
Yeah.
you're going back into the situation, but you're also bringing this, I'm better than this now.
Maybe a bit of that
You know,
too.
I'm working for, you know, I'm in the Rolls Royce Orchestra now, and I'm going
Yeah.
back to. I don't want to shit on anybody's car brand, so I'm going back
Right,
to something
right.
that isn't the top. So, you know, there could be some of that, maybe, and I'm not saying there is, but
Could be
maybe there is. Explore that a little bit
a
too.
little bit,
Am I
yeah.
coming in thinking I'm too good for this now, or I'm
Yeah.
Mr. Taya and I'm going to be impervious to all this, so I'm not going to bother pre-paving my intentions.
That's it right there. Because I was like, here's the things, I haven't actually been triggered on this level since before this. The last trigger I had that was really on this level would have been January of last year, 2022. And that was what prompted me to do boot camp, because I was like, one thing is bothering me so much and I can't get over it. This is actually clear to me now that I gotta do boot camp, because I need to process this. I can't carry this kind of junk forward. And so when and I have been I've again, I haven't had this since boot camp. So that's why when it happened, I was like, what in the world? What was this? And it took a while, but I started to realize that, okay, there's definitely some value here. I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to dig. I don't quite know what it is. And the curious thing is, the week after I leave this employer, I'm gonna go play with another one that is really a big one, like, and a good one. And it's a new relationship, and it's a really high profile thing, and it's this new vibration where it's more, I feel, up to speed for where I am
yeah.
now. It's
So you've
so
got clarity that you were probably judging going back to this as you're better than this now.
maybe
And it's okay that you think that. It's good to
right,
think highly of yourself. That's what got you to the higher level, right?
right,
So you probably came in the over the big thing that we're learning here, though, for all of us, is that you have manifested this experience to reveal to you what's lurking in the vibrational basement that you
right,
can still work on.
right.
And if you listen to this week's and plug my podcast here, that not the Stream of David, you can listen to that too. But
Yeah,
the Tire Practice podcast with Julie, you know Julie very well,
yeah, 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 Julie.
is about loving the game.
Right.
So
Oh yeah,
it's not unusual for someone to finish boot camp, even though I tell all of you people that you're not all fixed when you get out of boot camp. You're learning the practice, and then you go do the practice for the rest of your life, and you never reach the threshold of perfection. But it's not unusual to think once you've created so much magic in your life and so much expansion that you're done. I'm not going to ever go back to that coach level again. I'm all done. I'm all fixed. But it's a beautiful thing when you start really appreciating when you manifest the obstacle and realize, wait a minute, Taya is not about never having obstacles. Taya is about teaching myself how to experience them differently and solve them, but I'm still going to manifest obstacles as I go along.
right,
I'm going to manifest the beautiful new home, and then it's going to burn to the ground so I can start over again. You're going to do that. So for you, it's exploring how much ego was at play in your
right,
judgment of the scenario you're in. How much, what specifically do you need to detune? You've
right.
identified that fairness is something you need to detune.
Yeah,
Because if you're source and you're appreciating all that is, and you are, then there's no need for fairness.
yeah,
There's no such thing as fairness. The world is not fair. The universe is not fair,
yeah,
period.
right.
That's a very polarized concept. So, that's the gift that you have manifested in the journey. And now you've also manifested an appearance back on this program a week from now, where you can come back and share with us how you worked on this stuff, and
Yeah,
if it's done any. There's no goal that you have to
yeah,
hit here,
yeah,
but can you shift the energy in the next few days and have a different experience, realizing that, okay, I'm still judging this. I didn't really set an intention for what I want to experience. I just kind of walked into the Wild West thinking it was going to be all different. And I showed myself that there's still things to do.
right.
We're
Yeah,
never done with this work.
yeah. No, nor should we be. We would, that would be boring if we were. I mean, that would be. I mean, I'm in a phenomenally better place now than I was just a few days ago. And it's from a, like, I listened to there's a new meditation you have in the Patreon group, which is really good. I really enjoyed that. And so if it's a lot of when I'm definitely up the spiral, my perspective is totally different. I'm like not participating at all. I'm enjoying it, and I'm seeing that there's like, it's sort of like the wealth pyramid. When you're down the pyramid, well, I don't know how to say it. It's like I sort of went up the pyramid and then it went back down temporarily to a lower place, and it's not a good or bad. It's just you were just there. But it's a lot better now than it was just a couple days ago. But when I'm not up the spiral, that's when it can come back with a vengeance. And so I'm always now like ready.
Yeah, well, that's the polarity part.
Yeah,
That's the polarity pillar right there. Paying attention to where you are vibrationally,
yeah,
understanding that you're not going to be up the spiral all the time, but just knowing where you are and catching and realizing that, oh, I'm having this experience right now because I'm not where I want to be vibrationally. I can, you can boost yourself up, and you know how to do that.
right. Yeah. It's I've had to really flex the thigh muscles big time, like in the last few weeks. And like that's what I was saying, like tie a boss level. you know? which is good. It's good it comes now, because you confront it now, or it's going to manifest later. It's you could choose. you know and I think that's we'll talk more about it next week. I'm sure it's going to be in a very different place. I've already have so much insight. I even like traced it back to like a root transgressor that I worked on a lot in boot camp, and was a bit surprised because I thought like I was done with that, and I was like, oh, maybe I could see this line from that thing into the present moment. So it's very, 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 very curious, this whole process.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in here for everybody that's watching live or in the future. We have a masterclass coming up on July 22nd.
Right.
And if you want to learn more about the Taya practice, or you want a refresher on the Taya practice, and you want to learn about how to learn it and how to start applying this, sign up. The masterclass is free. We allow 2 hours, but my goal is to get through it a lot faster. I'm trying to cut down the time on everything. We set aside 2 hours because we do a big Q&A at the end that everybody always seems to stick around for and ask lots of questions. But I have the link right here. Wherever you're watching this, it should pop up. So click on the link if you're interested in learning more about the Taya practice. Even if you've been through boot camp, it doesn't matter. Click on the link, sign up, and set aside the time and put it on your calendar for July 22nd.
Okay.
I think it's at 11 a.m. Pacific, but the link will tell you all of that stuff, and you can learn more about the practice. So I want to take this opportunity. We have 2 minutes left. I know you got to go. To thank you so much for being very candid with all of us, sharing your sharing your wonderful your transgressor experience, because this is part of being human. We're not here for perfection. We're always going to have setbacks, and we're going to go up and down vibrationally. The key is to detune the transgressors so that you do systematically go up and up and up. Even though you're going up and down, you're still taking your vibration higher and higher, and you're exploring this stuff. And when your triggers are revealed to you, you now have the tools to dive in and start detuning that stuff and working on it. I geek out on this. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
It's not comfortable, but it's valuable.
Really. Yeah, it's not always comfortable. Just like you said, boot camp is not always comfortable. Boot camp, if it doesn't challenge you, you're not going deep enough. You're not going to change your life and not be disrupted. Right. Disruption is what changes your life. You've got to disrupt things to really bring about real change. You absolutely do. So thank you, David, and all of you watching live, thank you, and all of you watching in the future. Thanks for watching this all the way to the end. Take the masterclass. We'll have lots of fun. You'll learn lots of things, and I look forward to seeing all of you there. And David, we'll be back on next Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific. We'll do a full hour. We'll hear from David about whatever his experience is. If it gets worse, we'll dive into that. Right. If it gets better, we'll celebrate it, and we will take some questions from all of you watching live.
Yeah. Thanks for joining, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.